We're probably going to lose, aren't we? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And welcome to another episode of Early Access. This is my series of match previews where we specifically take a look at the next upcoming Chelsea match. We do a little analysis on the opponent and choose our predicted lineups. Okay, so it's Club World Cup still. God, this thing feels like it's going on forever, doesn't it? So we started off well. We beat LAFC 2-0, which is kind of as you'd expect, I guess. Next game, not so much. We got absolutely battered. 3-1 by Brazilian club Flamengo. Now, as all of you, I was pretty devastated by it, and am still, but I have done a little bit of research into Flamengo, and okay, I can kind of see it wasn't exactly the same as just playing like a really low team. So I'm going to direct your attention to this little graphic that I found on Reddit, and it goes not all of the way, like there's a lot of problems with Chelsea, but it goes some way to explaining why Flamengo maybe did so incredibly well, despite being from what felt like a slightly less competitive league. So this graphic is in Portuguese, and it contains the top 30 teams as far as games played go in the last 12 months. And as you can see right at the very top, at number 1 is Flamengo, who played 78 games in the last 12 months. So, you know, that kind of goes some way to explaining maybe why they were in really good form, although you might argue exhaustion also could be a thing. We're still really been putting our team together and building it, and they have played they've played like 30% more games than we have. If you look a little bit further along the graphic, you can see that we are in 9th place with 57 games played. So they have played nearly 20 games more than us, and that's definitely going to have done something for their form, right? Felipe Luis, ex-Chelsea left-back, is their manager, and ultimately he seems to be doing a really, really good job there. They've got reasonably good players. They have got obviously massive unity and togetherness because they managed to orchestrate that enormous comeback. So although I do think we should be winning games like this, absolutely, that is not to take credit away from Flamengo and the amazing work that they've obviously done over the last 12 months in playing 78 games. But that's enough of that one. We'll get out of those Flamengo blues and move into what is coming up. So our next game is against a Tunisian side, Espérance. And I will quickly just pop this graphic back up there because if it's anything to go by at all, then that might be good news for us. Espérance do feature on this graphic, and they are in 25th place with 48 games played. So 9 less than us, you know, maybe that's not a game changer, but we just got to look for anything we can at the moment to try and give us some indication that we might be better off going into this game. So probably like the rest of you, I'd never really heard of Espérance before. I would be telling a barefaced lie if I said I'd ever watched a top division Tunisian Premier League game ever. But as far as they go in their own circles, they are a bit of a juggernaut, right? They've won 34 league titles. They've only lost 1 game in like the last 20 games or whatever it is. That, you know, they've been kind of red hot in their own league. They lost to Flamengo 2-0 in their opening game, but they actually did manage to beat LAFC 1-0. So, I mean, it's really difficult to kind of judge it, isn't it? But what basically all that information is telling me is that we're probably not in for an easy ride and a game where we can afford to take risks like experiments and, you know, putting people in weird places and stuff. This is absolutely a game that we're good. Just if we want to win and we want to stay in this competition, we need to put our best team out and our best foot forward, because otherwise we will probably end up with egg on our faces again. So structurally, Espérance seem to be a counter-attacky kind of team. They play either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, put a lot of emphasis on their wingers. So it looks like we could be in for another low block situation where they're going to try and frustrate us. Obviously, regardless of anything, we have more quality in our team. That's just by far and away, like, absolutely true. We've got more quality in our team, so the smart thing to do for any team like that is to do the low block thing, because it's not just Chelsea. You know, a lot of top teams do struggle with this, but ultimately we come up against that low block very often, and we really, really struggle with it, right? So I would imagine that Espérance are probably going to try and play stuffy, stinky, stingy football, put a load of men behind the ball, look for an opportunity to get one of their creative, tricky wingers or their like 6'7" striker that they've got in their team as well. There is definitely things they could do to hurt us. You know, set pieces, low blocks, counter-attacks. It's going to be one of those kind of games. We are probably almost definitely going to have all of the ball for the most part, and it is just going to be about trying to unlock them, right? So it's difficult, isn't it? We always come up against this problem. Our normal unlockers of the likes of Cole Palmer are still relatively off form, but as this is technically a lower opposition kind of thing, maybe this is a good opportunity for him to find that creative spark. Maybe someone like Liam Delap could actually do really well in this game, but I will not go into too much spoiler territory about the lineups because that is what we are going to cover right now. Okay, so goalkeeper. It hurts, but I have to say it's still Robert Sanchez because no one else has got any minutes yet. It's, I wouldn't necessarily say Sanchez was massively at fault for a lot of those goals either. It seemed just like the team in general, the tactical setup, the experimentation we were trying just really did not work in our favour. Sanchez gets another run out in the sticks. And do you know what? For the rest of the competition, that's probably going to be the case. As we've seen, this is not a time to experiment. Maybe, at the beginning of the tournament, there was an idea that, maybe Mike Penders could come in and give it a go. But based on how a lot of these normally, less scary opposition are performing, the likes of Real Madrid being held and, PSG being beaten by Botafogo, we can't afford to take any risks. And unfortunately, Sanchez is our best and most experienced goalkeeper we have brought to the competition with us. So the back line, I was a bit surprised at how many changes there were last time, but Maresca himself did say, we were trying something, we were experimenting. I expect us not to do that this time. So in right back, we start off with our captain, Reece James. Get him back in there. Don't mind seeing Malagusto when Reece James isn't available. I'd rather see a Malagusto there than like a Trevor Chalobah, for instance. Do you know what I mean? It's Chalobah really rate him as a centre-back, but ultimately that right-back position just isn't really for him. Reece James is becoming a bit more and more consistent. Do you know what I mean? He's been fit for a while, which I guess is just kind of the main thing because we know what he can do. I don't expect Malagusto and Reece James to play in this game again like they did with the Flamengo thing because we just got torn to shreds and confidence is going to be a thing, right? So I think we need to kind of set up, especially if counter-attack is going to be a thing. I would rather have a slightly more defensively resolute Reece James there than Malagusto desperately always trying to push into the number 8 position. So Reece James gets the right back spot. That's just a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? Left back, it's Marco Correa. And that is because there is just no other choice. It's not only that. If we had other choices, it would probably still be Marco Correa because there's not really many left backs that you could point out, even ones that, we could go out and buy. Do you know what I mean? There's not many left backs available that you'd say were obviously better than Marco Correa. So Marco Correa keeps his spot easy peasy. So centre backs, right? It's Levi Colwill because he does seem to be the most assured. He is generally getting the most game time out of any of our centre-backs. I don't think Levi Colwill was massively individually at fault for anything that happened in the last game. So we stick with Levi Colwill at left centre-back. Right centre-back, let's go back to Tosin, man. For me, it's let's stick Uncle Tosin back in the right centre-back spot. Chalobah, I think it's a weird one with Chalobah because unless we're really thinking about keeping Chalobah, I'm almost not really seeing the value in playing him that much at the moment. I imagine that we'll probably keep Tosin over Chalobah. Saying that, though, they're both pure profit sales, aren't they? Because Chalobah is an academy product and Tosin was a free. So although we would make pure profit off of both of them, Tosin, obviously, we got the win under Tosin. He performed pretty well at the back end of last season. And maybe if Chalobah's got an inkling that he's going to be sold, maybe his heart's not super in it either. Do you know what I mean? So, there's lots of question marks above all of that one, but just based on the fact that he played really well against LAFC, and that was the most recent success that we've had, I think we stick Uncle Tosin back in the right centre-back spot. Okay, midfield. We just haven't got time to be interesting, have we? I would absolutely love to see Andre Santos get a shot, but it's just not a good idea. Not when we really need to win this game. Putting all of that pressure on him right now is just not a good idea. Lavia didn't look amazing in his last outing like he can do sometimes. So it's for that reason I'm going to go with Enzo Fernandez in the slightly more roamy midfield spot, and obviously that will be partnered by none other than Moises Caicedo, and again that's because largely not a huge amount of other options are there. So yeah, Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez. It's boring at the moment and it's probably going to stay reasonably boring, but let's just try and win this game, right? Okay, so the attacking midfielders is going to be boring, but I would have liked to have done something interesting actually. Had Mr. Jackson not got himself sent off like a silly boy, I would have opted for him on the left wing this time. Although that's an experiment, it seems like a less dangerous one because it's not like Madueke and Tyreek George do this ridiculous amount of defensive work and people are cutting through us because they're on the left wing. Do you know what I mean? So as far as just like trying to get a goal goes, you would argue that Nicholas Jackson is probably a better goal scorer or like attacking player than Madueke or Tyreek George. But ultimately, this whole conversation is null and void because Nicholas Jackson is not available. So it's going to be Madueke again. And I shipped that the first time because he looked great in an England shirt and stuff, but his outing against LAFC wasn't unbelievable. So, yeah, man, oh, God, it's just such a nightmare at the moment, isn't it? Literally, how did we get here? In the space of a month, how did we get here? But, yeah, anyway, I'll start with the left, and I'll say Noni Madueke, and obviously the rest of the team kind of writes itself in Cole Palmer in the middle, praying that he gets a goal or an assist or even just a few nice key passes or something, and, you know, maybe this is a better opportunity, although we need to not put down the level of opposition we're going to play against because, as we're seeing, anything can happen. Cole Palmer could maybe be able to use a game like this to take advantage of a slightly lower level of opposition to do something fantastic, get some confidence back, and sometimes that's all you need, isn't it? And obviously, the one player that is, you know, the definite first name on the team sheet right now, back on the right wing, it's Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto scored on the left, on the right, so I guess there's an argument to say maybe we put Pedro on the left and put Madueke back on the right and give him a shot out there. But either way, for me, Pedro Neto gets on the right wing. He's been industrious, imperious, he's scoring goals, he looks assured, and at the moment is one of the only Chelsea players that when he gets the ball, you're kind of like, oh, a thing might happen. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, Pedro Neto on the right wing because, I mean, you just have to, don't you? He's literally, we scored 3 goals in this competition and he scored 66% of those goals, so it seems like a safe bet. And up front, it's Liam Delap, isn't it? It's Liam Delap. Maybe, you know, he looked really good in the first game when he came on, obviously got his assist against LAFC. Looked a little bit underwhelming in the last game, and obviously he got taken off for Jackson around the 60-minute mark again, but it's either now Delap or Mark Gue, and I don't think Mark Gue is going to get thrown into this game because, as I said, we absolutely need to win it. And at the end of the day, barring anything else, getting Liam Delap competitive minutes under his belt at this early stage in his Chelsea career, even if nothing happens, that's just a good thing. Because if he can play the next few games, maybe get a goal or another assist or something, that kind of gets him into the team, and you know, people starting to understand him and know what to look for and stuff. And then we got pre-season, and then maybe, you know, by then he's had like a good amount of time in a Chelsea shirt and it doesn't quite feel so new and scary. So yeah, there's lots of reasons obviously for Liam Delap. It's really the only one that makes sense, and yeah, that's you know, it just has to be him, doesn't it? So that's it. A little bit of a boring lineup. I haven't opted for any Andre Santoses or Mamadou Sarrs or anyone particularly new and interesting because this tournament has told us we can't afford to take risks. It was really obvious from day one when Bayern Munich beat Auckland 10-0. That wasn't day one, it was day two, wasn't it? But either way, it's been really, really obvious from the start that everyone is taking this competition super seriously. And as I've mentioned before, these big events can galvanise teams. I did a video the other day where I mentioned the money on the line, right? You got to think, like, how often does a team like Espérance or Flamengo or Auckland or any of these other teams that you haven't really heard so much of before, how often do they get an opportunity to compete for 100 mil? Do you know what I mean? In football, in terms, like, we're all a little bit desensitized to amounts of money now, right? Because I remember 10 years ago or something, you bought a player for 20 mil and that was like, whoa, that's kind of expensive. Do you know what I mean? And now we're like throwing 80 mil at, you know, Darwin Núñez and 90 mil at Romelu Lukaku, and, you know, these massive things that just aren't playing out, and it doesn't affect us at all. We're just like, yeah, whatever, it's not that much. But ultimately, 100 mil to a football team that isn't of Premier League standard and Premier League finances, that's huge, man. That's so huge. Do you know what I mean? It's like Flamengo could, you know, start rebuilding their stadium, or well, not rebuilding the whole stadium, but they could upgrade their stadium, their training facilities. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about buying players. This kind of money really, really can help one of these teams' infrastructures. And for that reason, they're going to want it a lot more than we do. That's just the case. Like, these smaller teams, I'm sorry, I need to find another word for this, but I'll get around to it eventually. But these slightly less well-off teams want this more than we do because they very rarely get the opportunity to compete for this sort of money. Do you know what I mean? So for Chelsea, right, for Man City, even for Real Madrid and PSG and all these kind of guys, we're not going to be like all of us would love to win this competition and get 100 mil, but if we don't, it's not going to be like well, it's not going to massively change anything. It's just going to give us a little sort of push to what we didn't have before, and winning a trophy would be nice. But for these other teams, Botafogo and Auckland and Flamengo and Espérance, this is huge. This is absolutely massive. Some of these guys, this will be the biggest stage that they've played on and the biggest opposition that they've ever come up against. And that is one thing I like about the Club World Cup. It is really like allowing world football to take centre stage, right? And you just assume, don't you? You just wake up and assume any Premier League team is going to beat any Tunisian team any day of the week. But you don't consider how much this competition actually means to those teams, right? So that's the danger there. It's not the tactics, it's not the players, it's not the money spent, it's the gravitas of the event that they're competing for and what winning that would do for their club. Because like I say, all the European teams, the big European teams that were in this competition, we could lose this and just be like, whatever. We'll get knocked out and just be like, all right, okay, well, back home we go then, and tomorrow's another day. But for these guys, like, it's so huge. I can't state enough how massive this is for these. And ultimately, like I say, that is where the danger is, right? It is, we as Chelsea fans, we talk about it a lot, don't we? Like, sometimes you just watch a Chelsea game and you say, we didn't want it enough. Do you know what I mean? And that's when we're talking about like a Premier League game or a Carabao Cup game or something. Do you know what I mean? Where we might lose to, a mid-table team rather than, not a League Two team or something, like a mid-table team. We're like, we didn't want it enough. These guys want this much, much, much more than we do. And that is what we need to try and prepare for. So that's it. That's my kind of assessment on the Espérance game. Ultimately, I do think we'll win. Do you know what I mean? I do think we'll win. I think the Flamengo game, there was more to it than them just being a slightly lower level of opposition and us having a bad day. I think Flamengo are at the end of an unbelievable stretch of football that they've been playing, and a mix of the event and their tactical acumen and their togetherness really got them through. I think this will be a bit more like the LFC game. Do you know what I mean? And unless we really turn it on, someone needs to turn something on as well, because obviously with Nicholas Jackson getting sent off, it's who knows like how the guys are feeling in the changing rooms at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So I'm actually going to predict a 2-1 for this one. I think we'll get a couple of goals, but I am cautious that they've got a very tricky winger and an absolutely massive striker, and height isn't necessarily something we're really blessed with in our team. So I think we could get her on a set piece or a counter attack essentially, or them just bombing balls into the box whenever they get the opportunity. So yeah, I'm going to say 2-1. And I'm not really happy about that. We should be realistically winning these games 3 or 4-0, not necessarily a 10-0 like Munich did. Do you know what I mean? But we should be comfortably winning these games. Let's hope that we revert to type in terms of the football that's been working for us, and let's save the experimentation for pre-season. Because I maybe a lot of you felt the same as me. When we were going into this competition, I was all like, oh, we can try Andre Santos and we can try this guy and that guy, and we'll put Nicholas Jackson out on left wing and see what happens. But the way the Club World Cup has unfolded, really interestingly, it is just not the time and place for that, is it? Absolutely, at all. So thanks for sticking around for another episode of Early Access, guys. I will endeavour to follow it up with another Patch Notes episode like I did last time. And hopefully that's a little bit more of a fun one, right? Hopefully we get to talk about some good stuff and not just all cry about how rubbish our team is. And as ever, if you enjoy the content, please do me the distinct honour of liking, sharing, subscribing, hit all the algorithmical buttons, and let's help me get to 1,000 subs so I can start bringing more of this content to you guys on a regular basis. Nice one. Thanks very much for sticking around. Have a great day, and I will catch up with you soon. Peace.